Do you run towards it so that you can get through it so that you can breathe afterwards? Or do you tend to run away and hide and exhaust yourself trying to avoid it, only for it to catch up to you and leave you weathering the storm exhausted? I have a fun question for you today. Are you like the buffalo or are you like the cattle? Let me explain and tell you a story because you know that's what I love to do. Buffalo and cattle grazing in the same area, the same prairie. They smell a storm. Animals naturally know that a storm is brewing, that it's coming. The buffalo recognize the storm and start to run towards the storm. The cattle sense the storm and start to run away from the storm. The buffalo, big, heavy, heads down, bore into the storm so that they can make it through to the other side. The cattle, as they run away, they tire and they're exhausted. And even though they're running away, the storm is quickly catching up to them. And eventually the storm overtakes that cattle. And that cattle has to weather the storm, tired, exhausted, and then they get to the other side. Now, once all of the animals are on the other side, at the time that you get to the other side of the storm, you get to experience the respite. You get to eat the new grass. You get to relax knowing that you made it through that other storm. So, are you like the buffalo or are you more like the cattle? Do you run towards it so that you can get through it so that you can breathe afterwards? Or do you tend to run away and hide and exhaust yourself trying to avoid it, only for it to catch up to you and leave you weathering the storm exhausted while it's beating upon you and exhausted when you come out on the other side? We were with our grandkids and we were in an amusement park and there was this ride. Now my grandson, he's 12 years old, 13 years old, and he had never been on one of the really fast loop-de-loop rides. He'd been on all sorts of other kinds of rides, but none quite this intense. So we encouraged him. The way that it was, you kind of went in and then you went through all the rides and then you'd go through into a different land and then you'd come out the other side. So if we were going to do this ride, it needed to be done now because we weren't going to come back around. And he really wanted to do this ride. So we get in line. And in line, he's emotional. Beautifully emotional. He's allowing us to see that he's scared and he's crying. And we ask him, are you sure you don't have to do this? We can try it another time. Don't even worry about it. He's like, no, I want to do this. I want to do this on this trip right here, right now. Okay, we're here for you. And he would hold our hands or he would hug us. And throughout the line, he was just making sure that he was connected with somebody to be okay. When we got to the front of the line, his parents ended up in the front row and grandma ended up in the second row. So he gets on the ride with me and it has the big brace that comes down over your shoulders and connects down between your legs and it's solid and it has the handles on that brace to hold you in and you can grab onto those. So my grandson grabs on and he's scared and you can feel him just vibrating with anxiety. And I reached over and I put my hand between his handle and I just gently rubbed the back of his hand. We go through the ride and it was a little too much for me. So I closed my eyes and put my head against the back of the headrest and I just kept gently rubbing his hand and allowing my body to feel what was going on. I would catch air when we went onto the loop-de-loops and I would come off of the seat, but I knew that my harness would hold me in. I could feel myself buffeted from side to side. It was pretty intense. And at the end, we came out and my grandson and I, we just gave each other the biggest hug. It was so nice to be off this ride and we did it. We were really proud of ourselves because we did it. So later I asked him, I said, hey, would you like Grandma's trick? Would you like my trick on how I get through those rides? And he said, sure. So I told him about closing my eyes and letting my body feel it. But that way it wasn't seeing quite so much and I could really focus and be okay. And his response was so wise beyond his years, I just had to sit there with it for a minute. He said, Grandma, if I close my eyes, then how am I facing my fears? If I can't see what's coming at me, how am I facing it? Isn't that just hiding from reality? He taught his grandma a lesson in that moment. And it was so beautiful because both of us were kind of like buffalo in that. We were heading it straight on. We were choosing to do this, go for it, and dive in. And we were going to come out on the other side of that storm and we were going to be okay. He did it with his head up, facing it fearlessly. I went into it head down, eyes closed, knowing that I would get through it to the end. Neither one of us ran away. So we're both buffalo in that phrase, in that moment. But I wondered, are there any times that I've been more of the cattle? And there have been in my life. Moments that I've been running away from it, not wanting to face the fact that this is coming and I will have to face it. I will have to deal with it. And I don't really want to deal with it right now. But in refusing to deal with it right now, I am prolonging the misery. I am slowly draining myself as I run away from what it is that I really have to face. Take a moment and pull it in. Simmer on it for a minute. Is there anything in your life that you are choosing to be with the cattle? Is there anything that you are running away from that is slowly draining you, and yet it's still going to catch up with you no matter what? Would it be better for you to pause and face it and say, I am going to deal with this now instead of later? Better for you, better for your heart, your emotions, your energy in every way, shape, and form. And quite frankly, it might even be better for the other person. Rip the Band-Aid off. Get it done. Be a buffalo. I hope you play with it. Do a little self-introspection and recognize where you're at. And if there's anything that you need to do to adjust and start facing the storm so that you can come out stronger, happier, and ready to relax and face the new day. Take care and come back soon.